Welcome to Life Source Education and Encouragement. This is Series 1, First Phoenix, Discovering My Purpose at the 1995 Million of Washington, D.C. This is the third and final episode of the first series titled Acts of Faith Rewarded, also known as Resulting Blessings, God's Providence. Welcome to Episode 3, Acts of Faith Rewarded. If you haven't seen episodes 1 and 2, I would suggest watching those to have context for this, but you can also watch this anyway because it will stand alone and perhaps encourage you to want to see episodes 1 and 2. In the meantime, let me give you some reminders about why I'm doing this project in the first place. When an elder dies, a library burns to the ground, an ancient African proverb. Your time is your life. That is why the greatest gift you can give someone is your time. Rick Warren, A Purpose-Driven Life. Episode summary. I returned with hope and a new sense of purpose. I came back humbled and more or less fearless, ready to act on what I believed. And I found the first place where I could begin to live out my new values. Now, the story. So I returned to my hometown, feeling hopeful with a sense of purpose. I understood and accepted that in order to become who I needed to be, to do the new things that I would need to do, I had to make myself available. So, against resistance, I gave 2 weeks' notice on my job and I began to look for the place that was right for me. To be clear, I was unclear on where I was supposed to be or what I was supposed to be doing, but I was definitely open to something different. I was ready to step away from doing what I always knew, relying on what was safe or to know what was expected. I was ready for some real change. It just so happened that a nonprofit organization for whom I had done volunteer work before had an entry level position opening up, a leasing consultant. My mom happened to work at the organization and she brought it to my attention. At first, I dismissed the idea altogether. I mean, love my mom, but I didn't really want to work with her. The position itself wasn't one directly tied to her role, but just being in the same office spaces every day. I don't know. Moms can be bossy, you know how it is. Um, but after sleeping on it, I began to think about my experiences with the organization. I had volunteered with them a few times at their Repair Affair event. It was a once a year event where volunteer workers, skilled people, and donated materials were brought together to do free repairs and installations at the homes of low income families and seniors and disabled persons in the West End of Louisville. It was a pretty fantastic thing. Somewhere between like 10 and 20 homes, I think, had major work done, roofs repaired, water heaters installed, wheelchair ramps built. I mean, just a lot of amazing big ticket things that those households couldn't afford to do on their own. And I had a great feeling working with all the people. And I had a great feeling about the organization. And of course, mom never had anything bad to say about the work she did there. She loved doing it. So I thought to myself, maybe, just maybe, this is the place I'm supposed to be. I got an interview scheduled with the director of housing at the time. And when I met with him, the beginning of the interview was super warm. He was a gentle, soft spoken person. He seemed very serious, very knowledgeable. You could tell he knew what he was doing. And the first part of the interview was really us getting to know each other. He was asking me questions about my values, why I wanted to work there. And at first, I didn't have great answers. They were very nebulous because it was just a feeling that I had. Well, I feel like you guys do good work and I enjoy volunteering with y'all. It all seems real nice. And eventually, he got to the place where he began to speak about the job itself. And that's where I learned the job paid a path. of what I've been making up to that point. And while that gave me pause, my intuition said to me, do it. The money's not the main thing right now. The main thing is being in the right place and doing the right thing that will take you where you're supposed to go. So I accepted the position. And later on, as I told people I knew about what I'd done, again, a lot of pushback and resistance. Why would you take a job paying half what you made? You had a good career and you're making good money. Um, it was difficult for me to explain to them because at the time, I didn't have the language that I have now. I didn't have the hindsight and analysis to fully tell them why I was doing what I was doing. It made sense to me and it felt right to me, but I had difficulty communicating it. After some time, I was able to tell folks this one important thing. I think I'm there to give people who live in low income housing what I didn't have growing up in low income housing. When I was young and living in the projects, as they were called, I was embarrassed to bring school friends home with me. I felt anxious and unsafe most of the time because we had a fair amount of crime and conditions were unattractive. Police were actually a bane in the community, believe it or not. And we felt invisible when it came to management or staff, and sometimes just disrespected. So I felt like maybe as a person with those experiences, I could do something to help the families living in low income housing at that time to have a better experience, particularly the children. First focus point: hope and a sense of purpose. So I returned home feeling hopeful because I had a new sense of purpose. I knew I was going somewhere meaningful, which was powerful, even though I didn't know exactly where. And I began interpreting the old environment in new ways, replacing my old conditioned reactions with new ways of responding thoughtfully. All of these things were new for me and were going to take practice, but I was determined to live them through. The second focus point: humility and courage. Being at the march in that environment, I saw how beautiful my people could be. This exposed the ignorance and misunderstanding that I had and made me ready to learn more about who we were, who I could be. I experienced a beauty of doing something new. And previously, trying new things was fraught with peril. I was fearful about doing new stuff. But this experience made me want to do new things. It made me willing to fail at stuff, willing to have experiences in pursuit of the good. Third focus point: willingness to step out on faith. And so, the combination of having hope, having a purpose, being humbled, but also feeling courage, all empowered me to make two big leaps of faith. The first leap was quitting my job before I had a new one. Up to that point, that's something you just didn't do. The threat of being hungry or being homeless was real, it was always near. So letting go of one source of income before you have another just was not something that we did. The second leap of faith was taking the 50% pay cut because I knew A, my quality of life was going to go down materially, but I was willing to do that. And B, I knew I would get feedback, negative feedback from the people around me. And I'm not judging folks or blaming, I'm just saying I know that's how they're going to respond. And it took courage for me to do something that I knew would get negative feedback from other people because I was conditioned to be a people pleaser. And this experience helped me to begin to break out of that cycle. A fourth focus point: finding a place to live new values. Even though it's true that when one starts living out new values, we're really supposed to do that everywhere, no matter where we are. But a serious truth for me at the time was that most of the places in which I existed and functioned weren't welcoming to my new values. So I felt I needed to find a place to do that. And when I found New Directions Housing Corporation, it wasn't just the work, it was the culture they had there. The working environment was positive. People were kind and patient, understanding, and encouraging. It was great to be treated like an equal. It was great to be treated with understanding. It was also good to have expectations, to be encouraged, and not to get beaten up, so to speak, when mistakes were made, but simply having it treated as a learning experience and having people put faith in me. I mean, the kind of faith that I used to be afraid to receive, I was very open to receive it there. It was genuine. It wasn't to make me more useful or more productive. I was a person first, a participant second, and then a stakeholder and sharer in all that we accomplished together. So, with all that said, I think it's a good time for us to revisit the four key questions and let me briefly talk about how they applied to me after I returned home from the march, the person I was then and the person I was becoming. Who are you? What do you want? Why are you here? And where are you going? Question one. Who was I when I returned? I was a more hopeful person. I was purposeful. I knew I needed to do something important. I felt inspired. I was driven from the inside rather than the outside. And I was encouraged. I felt brave enough to do some things I'd never done before. And that's a very different who from before I went to the march. Question two. What did I want? Did that change? Yes. I wanted to change for the better, both myself and the world around. I wanted to really be useful in a way that mattered to me and to accomplish things that were important to me. And I wanted to improve the quality of life for myself and everyone around. I figured we all win when we all win together. And the fresh question, question three. Why was I there? Well, I was back in Louisville to be a better me, to manifest the vision that was forming in my heart and mind. And I was at New Directions Housing Corporation to make a positive difference both for myself and other people who are growing up in environments like the one I grew up in. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, question four. Where was I going? Well, in my view, I was moving into a better future, one guided by vision, one fueled by purpose. And I was en route to becoming a better me, better able to properly interpret the world around me and deal with it not as if it were an enemy, but as if it were a friend. And I was a friend to it. My acts of faith rewarded. The key points review. I returned feeling valued and seen. I had a new sense of purpose. I felt humble, but fearless. I was willing to take risks, stepping out on faith, and persevering through the difficulties and challenges that would come from that. And I was led to the first place where I could really live out my values, where I felt safe doing so, and that I would really make a difference. My encouragements for you: believe that there can be a better you. We can all be transformed into what we should be if we're willing to do what's necessary. on what's important to you. Live your convictions as a person. That's going to mean struggle, it's going to mean sacrifice, but I guarantee it's worth it. And I would also encourage you to trust the process as you move through it. I read somewhere that success is rarely a straight line. There are a lot of zigzags, ups and downs, twos and fros, hithers and yons. But if you stay focused on the goal, if you remember why you're doing what you're doing, why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, and if you let people help you along the way, you can endure. You can get there. A reminder of my hopes for you, that you might better see and believe in the capacity for transformation in yourself and choose to walk your path. That you might better see and believe the capacity for transformation in other people and encourage them to walk their path. And that we might all better see and believe in the capacity for transformation in all of humanity, as social groups, as governments, as a species altogether, seeing ourselves the way that God sees us. He created us with great potential, and we need to realize it together. A reminder on building together. If you'd like to support my labor of love, scan my master QR code with your smartphone to access all platforms and accounts. If you prefer, you can copy and paste this link into your web browser. You may also see my equipment donation registry on Amazon. You can search for my name, or you can find Support Life Source Education and Encouragement on the registry listings. Coming soon, Series 2, Walking the Path, Part 1, My First Place, Living My Values. Episode 1 is titled Learning. Thanks again so much for being here.